Hello YouTube, back on the next Yu-Gi-Oh! Review, and today we're reviewing Structure Deck 8, known as Lord of the Storms, the final Structure Deck in this sort of... I guess it does continue on, but we kind of lose after the 10th Structure Deck? Or no. Yeah. We get the 10th, and then we lose the 11th and 12th because they never get released in English for whatever reason. I guess Konami has a better idea, but... This Structure Deck brings in, it's kind of more support for Winged Beasts. I mean, it's somewhat more specifically Harpies, but at this point, Harpy Lady really didn't have a whole lot to go on. So regardless, this is not going to be enough to make Harpy Lady playable. We don't get support for Harpy until much later when Xyz monsters start getting released. And as you can see here, one of the cards I got here is Stardust Dragon. That's the only extra deck card I have thus far. At this point, I didn't really see a whole lot. I was going to use Wind monsters because, of course, they're all Wind attributes. You might as well have all the same type if you're going to run a deck around Wind monsters. So, I mean, I guess it's not the worst deck here. I don't have a whole lot going with this deck. I include some tuners, of course, to obviously bring out Stardust Dragon. Here's Mist Valley, Soldier, which is a level 4 tuner. So it's, I do want to place it with Top Runner because it's also, which is also searchable. It's also level 4. And then you can do a lot more with it. I mean, of course, there's a lot of dead draws in this deck, unfortunately, mostly because of Harpy Lady Sisters, which is also included. You got Elegant Egotist, which you can't use unless you got. Elegant Egotist. You need Harpy Lady also on the field, so you need 2 cards essentially to bring it out. I mean, I guess, and of course, one of the reprints I included, or one of the other cards I included is Reborn Tengu. Obvious reason, I would think. It always replaces itself whenever it leaves the field. I only have 1 copy. I only ever managed to get 1 copy at this point. But here's the boss monster. Not very good. It's probably one of the worst boss monsters in the line of structure decks, considering the fact that not only does it restrain you to its tributes being wind, if you're going to ever tribute someone, they must be wind. And then on top of that, both players get hit with 500 points of damage. For each spell and trap card they do not control during the end phase. You need at least 2 to minimize the damage, to reduce the damage to 0. I mean, granted, you can make use of that, but you're not always going to have 2 spell or trap cards to keep it on, maintain, to avoid taking the damage. And it's not very strong either. It's only got, 2,700 attack points? It's barely stronger than any of the Monarchs. Monarchs are way better by a long shot. Speaking of the Monarchs, they can tell you to screw you over with this. I mean, okay, I'll force you to give up your 2 spells and traps just so you take 1,000 damage every turn. I mean, this is literally every standby phase, or every end phase. Let's see. Yeah, each player's end phase, so that's what makes this card awful as it is. It did make an appearance in the anime, in the GX anime, but where it kind of wrecked a little more havoc, mostly because they have half the light points that we do, but it's pretty bad as a whole. I mean, it's had a couple of, I guess, variations over the years. It's had, there's been a couple of, I forget all of their names, but there's been a few of them over the years that are like that. Bird of Ancestry, I think, is one. Dark Simorg is the better version, way better, considering the fact that your opponent is locked out of setting anything that includes spells, traps, and monsters. It's not only stronger, you can also special summon it by a multitude of ways. You can also tribute summon with any 2 monsters you want, or 1 if you're using a double costing. I mean, it's a pretty awesome card. It's like insanely good. Structure deck, on the other hand, not very good. I mean, it's okay. I mean, okay, one other card I included here was one of the Earthbound Immortals. Obviously, it's not wind, but I figured it's Winged Beast. It does relate in a sense. And it can be good, especially because, I mean, Harpy's Hunting Ground, there's at least 2 copies in here. I should also, oh yeah, there's one other card. Advanced Draw. Obvious reasons for you not only using it with, you could use it with Dark Simorg, with some more Burn Divinity, or or a Silipiscu, and then you'll draw 2 cards and wipe your opponent's field out. Which is pretty decent. Oddly enough, this structure deck just does not seem like it was designed very well. I mean, there's cards for ninjas in here. Yeah, ninja monsters. The deck that would become basically irrelevant until much later when Xyz monsters come out. Because arguably, I don't think they really had anything going for it. Maybe they did, but it wouldn't have lasted very long. This is also the first print of Harpy Girl, where she was actually censored, and this has got blue artwork. I think Harpy Lady is not included in here, but I mean, why would you need that? I mean, Harpy Girl is already weaker than that. It was already a pretty crappy inclusion. I think they only included it to update the censorship on her. She was originally uncensored when she first came out. Yeah, in English even. So, I mean, it's really disappointing this structure deck does not have a whole lot going for it. They could have done a lot better with this. They really didn't add very much with this. None of the cards are really in here are all that good. I mean, granted, Reborn Tengu didn't exist when the structure deck came out. They could very well have put it in here, but probably a whole lot better. I guess they do have a couple. They have all three of the main, numbered Harpy Ladies: Harpy Lady 1, Harpy Lady 2, Harpy Lady 3, which count as Harpy Lady regardless. So you can only have up to three combination of any up to three of them, which helps a little bit considering the fact that they also affect monsters. They're relatively okay effects in general. A lot of the stuff in here is the more generic stuff. I mean, Reload is in here, Dust Tornado, stuff like that. Stuff that you find in pretty much every other structure deck up to this point. So overall, this structure deck's pretty subpar. I mean, granted, yeah, I could probably update it with all the Harpy support that's been released now. I don't think it's all that great, despite the fact that, obviously, I mean, yeah, I understand that it's got a pretty decent deck going for it, but that's only with that deck. The cards cannot be used effectively anywhere else, really. That's why I only rate cards as low as they are, regardless of their... Unless they're overpowered and generic, then I will rate them high. Just in case people are wondering, wait a minute, well, Harpy Ladies are doing well. You're obviously missing the mark here. Like, well, I rate them based on how good they are with other decks. If they're only good in one or two decks, I'm not going to rate them very high. The fact that they're good in those two decks is why I rate them as high as they are. So only a 2 out of 5, for example. But they have to be playable in multiple decks for me to rate them high, at least give them a 3 out of 5. They don't have to be overpowered. They just have to be good enough that you can use them. I mean, obviously the better and more generic they are, the higher the rating I can give here. But this structure deck, I'd honestly say, is probably one of the worst on the list. It's going to get worse, though. I think the 10th structure deck is the... that's where the gadgets are released. Machine Revolt. That, I think, is actually arguably worse. But, of course, none of the structure decks even compare to the booster set, Cyberdark Impact. That is god-awful. That is literally one of the worst decks. I've never rated a set so poorly, probably since then. I mean, it's that bad. I don't know if I will actually go into reviewing the booster sets that were released. I guess I could. I guess that's another thing I could probably do. I guess if it comes down to it, I will. But I have no plans to actually review them. But in terms of, if you remember Cyberdark Impact, and how bad that set was, there's only like a very small handful of good cards in there. I mean, this is 60 cards, and you have like 3 or 4 that are actually good. That shows you how bad this is. This is probably not as bad, but it's up there. So, yeah, that's my review on Structure Deck Lord of the Storm. Thanks for watching.